Hello students, in this video we are going to learn about the test plan. Now, what is a test plan? A test plan shows your entire project testing schedule and approach. It shows the scope of the project, approach, and the schedule of testing activities. Okay. In most of the companies, writing a test plan is the responsibility of the test lead or the QA person who is responsible for a certain project. And each company has its own way to create a test plan. In today's lecture, I will show you the format I used before in my previous company. So let's check out the test plan for our project iQAguru.com. So as you see on the screen, we have the Word document and it says this is the test plan for that particular project that has a phase 1.0, and it shows the document is test plan, version is 1.0. You can mention the date, author name, and that table particularly shows the revision history. Okay. Now we have this table of contents where we have introduction, purpose, scope, features to be tested, approach, browsers, etc. So let's go down and we have introduction here. So in introduction, you can always write the introduction of your project. So for example, for this case, we can write the primary goal of iQAguru.com. Phase 1A is to sell software QA books online. That's the introduction, but it could be more. And basically, this is just an introduction of a project where you can write up about your project. Then we have a purpose. The purpose of making this test plan is to understand the scope and testing methodology adapted for iQAguru Phase 1. This document also provides the insight and a schedule of testing activities, also to identify the features to be tested, the testing task, and the risks associated with this project. So you can define your own purpose as well. And the scope, the test plan document shows what is the scope of the testing. Because every project has part 1, part 2, part 3. So you have to mention the scope of this particular project. Then we can write down the features to be tested. So this is the broad feature. There would be tons of feature in the phase 1 to test, but that determines the broad functionalities that needs to be tested in this project or needs to be released in the project. So you can write down here, I just mentioned that homepage image gallery that would be working, their UI, user interface, we would be working, store navigation, product details page, buy a book. So these are the broad features that needs to be tested. And we can just write it down that the QA tester will use the user stories or the functional specification document to test all the features related to iQAguru.com. Okay, and that includes the functional testing, UI, UX testing. We are going to go through about the functional testing and UI testing in upcoming videos. We can write down the approach in the test plan, that what would be the approach of testing, how we are going to test it, and where we are going to test it. So that all covers in the approach area. So in the approach, we can mention that QA would be responsible for the sprint testing. So in the 2 weeks of the sprint, QA would be testing it. At the same time, once the testing is done in the sprint, then there would be the end-to-end testing, like from the beginning to the end. Not just one feature QA will be testing. He would make sure that everything is correct. And then performance testing, that determines the performance of the website, if the website is responding on the proper time or not. And there would be a UAT testing. So once certain features are done, then those features will be given to the UAT, means user acceptance testing. And the client who gave the requirements will make sure that all the requirements, whatever he have mentioned, has been up to date now in the website, or it's working fine. If there is any issue or not, if QA missed something, then UAT is the responsible to tell that needs to be fixed. When everything looks good, then it's time for the project to go into the production, meaning then the whole world can be able to see after we launch that particular project. Okay, and then last but not the least, production verification. Once the product goes into the production, then there will be again some kinds of testing to make sure that in production everything looks good, there is no issues. So there will be some kind of testing over there as well in the production. So the QA will be responsible for all these functionalities and all different kinds of testing. That's what it mentioned here. There could be one more actually, regression testing that we are going to learn about in the upcoming chapter. Regression, we can write integration. Okay, so this is the broad testing the QA responsible for. Then there is a browsers for iQA Guru testing, that as a QA, are we responsible to test only in one browser, or we should take care of all these browsers? So we can mention all the browsers here, browsers and operating systems. Then we can write about the test accounts, if there is a particular test account that we need to use in the testing. In iqaguru.com, we don't need any particular test accounts, but in general, when you're going to work in the real time, there would be a certain test accounts. Probably you need to use those to test it. So here you can mention the test accounts. Then we have the test data requirements, that if you are using a particular test data to test it, then you can write up here. Then we have a test phase entry criteria. The test phase entry criteria shows that what is the prerequisite to begin testing. That includes all test tools are available and test infrastructures are available for use during testing. All features should be code complete and all other dependent systems have completed code drop. The correct version of the code have been deployed to the test environment. Then he would be able to test it. Unit tests have been completed successfully to demonstrate readiness for test. So these are the important features I have written that are important before we start testing it. The code deployment is necessary. We want to make sure that the developers, basically, they are responsible for the unit test, and the unit test is a smallest test feature that developers make sure that a certain features are included in the code when the code is deployed to the QA. Okay, so then we can include the test phase exit criteria. So basically what they're saying, that if the high priority defects are fixed, and if we feel that projects has been done, then it's a test exit criteria. Then we can write up about the defect tracking. Every company has a different defect tracking tools. For our project, we are using Jira, so we can mention that all the defects would be tracked in the Jira. Then we can write it up about the defect priority definitions. It happens sometimes that there are so many defects, there are so many issues. Let's say there are 10 issues, and some of the features needs to be fixed first because they are in the high priority. So while we write up the defects, we make sure that we write down or we mention the appropriate severity and the priority with the defect. Okay, so we can define here that what is the critical, high, medium and low priority defect, and based on that developers would fix the defect. For example, P1 is critical, that needs to be really fixed because it's like a system or feature failure, it's critical. The second one is high, that is revenue impacted, it affects on the company's revenue, that needs to be fixed. If there is something we find in the application that is an issue, and if it's really revenue generated issue and high issue, we cannot release it to production. And if we have a very low issues like medium issue, that we feel that we can fix it later even after we release our product to the production, then that's fine. We can talk to project manager and we can fix it later. So that's not the hindrance in the release process. So we can actually mention that in our test plan as well. And then we can mention about the build and deployment process, then pass and fail criteria, then test environment, that where we are going to test it, that we can mention it. Also, the references is important, that where all the documents are located for a specific project. Okay, so this is the one centralized place you can write it up, that functional specification document is located on this location in the computer or in cloud. And then user interface documents location or any other document related to this project, you can mention it here. And then you can write it up about the user acceptance test, that if you have made any documents for that, if you have any test user for the UAT, you can actually write up the the location of that particular document here. Also, there is a project timeline and milestone. You can mention it here, that okay, the sprint 1 is from this date to particular that date, sprint 2 goes on to this date to this that, and after that we would have a user acceptance testing where the client will review all the project, and then he would let us know that if he finds anything bad or any defects, that we would be fixing it. So this is the timeline of a particular project. Project manager responsible to making a timeline, and you can just copy and paste in your project test plan. Then we can write down about the dependencies, assumptions, and risk. If we have any dependencies in our testing, for example, in some of the companies, the different teams are responsible for different stuff, but it happens sometimes that one team has to wait until the other team completes the prerequisite for that particular feature. So you need to write down the dependencies, you need to write down some of the assumptions, the risk, if there is any risk if you don't get the project on time, if the developers are not building a certain features on the time, that what would be the risk. So you can write down all the things in your test planning document. These are the main stuff that a person can write it up in the test planning document. This is the format that could be used in every single project. Whenever the new project comes in, you can use the same format and then just change the wordings in that format. Test plan is very useful, especially to other members in the team. They would come to know that what are the strategies we are using, what are the test data, what are the timelines, what are the resources. So they come to know about many things from the test documents. Okay. So I hope that you got an idea about the test plan document, and I would attach this test plan document to Udemy course line. You can take it from there for future reference. And feel free to message me in the message board if you have any questions. All right. Until then, enjoy and bye-bye.